Well, hello and welcome to a very special edition of the HLS Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Ritter. You can call me ND Tex. And yes, folks, the different theme song that you're hearing right now, off-season is here, Game of Thrones is over. So on a day where the Irish have one of their biggest signings in quite some time, we are, of course, going to talk probably zero football. Right, Shane?
Yep. What's that football? I'm not familiar.
Well, in all seriousness, we've been thinking about doing an episode like this, and now that Game of Thrones is finally in the books, we decided to go ahead and go through with it. The off-season lets us do these things. But of course, if you've never joined us before, you can always find our podcast over on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, and wherever you happen to direct your podcast feed at. And you can join us on Discord, herlittlesons.com/Discord. Come join and chat live. And of course, join the podcast live over on twitch.tv/herlittlesons. Come into the chat and all that kind of good stuff. And again, this is your final warning. If you have not watched Game of Thrones, have not yet seen the finale, eject. This is going to be, spoilers are coming. They are. Yep. We are not going to hold back on anything.
Spoilers are coming, and they will disappoint after about 7 years.
Was it 7 or 8? Because they took like a year break in between that.
Yeah.
Somewhere along that line. All right. Well, yes. So we are going to talk a little bit of Game of Thrones here. All right. So here's how we're going to start. We're going to start things out by, going somewhat basic. We're going to, let's talk about the ending in a vacuum if we can. I know that's a really hard thing to do, but let's at least try to start from there, because then we'll let the ranting continue after there. So put it in a vacuum. Let's forget about all the pacings, all the other issues you had with the way the final season went down, Shane. What do you feel about the actual end, the way things played out?
Well, okay, so that's two things, right? So the way it played out versus the episode as a piece of media, I think is are just two different prisms to view it through. So like, as a piece of media in a vacuum, I think if you were just to stumble into a room and start this and watch it through to the end, you would be riveted as fuck. It was the art, just the overall art direction, the incredible shots that they worked in, the acting that they really focused on for like Peter Dinklage, the dragon wing shot of Daenerys, like all those things play in until about the halfway point, at which point you would have to start to be like, huh? Because it signaled for half an episode that it was going to really, I guess, steer towards the drama, the fallout of the sequence, start to finish of that episode, where Tyrion's walking the carnage, goes to see his siblings, Jon Snow and Davos have to make decisions about how they're handling things, Grey Worm's lost his shit. All that stuff's compelling drama up until the throne room scene. And the only reason I say that is because that happened in just such a I guess whirlwind, like whiplashy kind of way. Like I remember watching Jon and Daenerys in that scene do their little like kiss 4-line debate about whether or not I should kill you. And when they went in for the kiss, I sneezed and didn't hear him stab her, so I didn't know what was happening. I just looked up and she was just falling, and I was like, "They really?" And then she said nothing, which was equally surprising because there was no like final words, all that kind of stuff. And then after that, it was just a kind of a Star Wars parade scene for 30 uninterrupted minutes. It's like, look at your favorite characters. Oh my God, they picked a king and no one was mad. Look, oh my God, Sansa's queen. Like everything's fine. Bra's not killing anyone. And it's just like, that's where it starts to kind of unravel, because what they built up to that, in light of how poorly the season had gone up to that point, they had really brought like that feel back to it for half an episode. That draw, and then afterwards it just kind of became a and scene, clap, bow, good night. So it's in a vacuum, it's a good episode. It's very Game of Thrones in terms of the brand they established, but then it loses itself into the weird finale of a show where there's not really any resolution to like 90% of what we cared about. So that's you have to. It's hard to parse.
Yeah, and in a vacuum, I mean, I didn't have a problem with basically the way the ending itself. Like, if you take the bullet points of the ending, it felt very exactly what George R.R. Martin would write. It's very bittersweet at best, It doesn't really leave anybody happy in the end. It's not a very happy ending for freaking anybody. I mean, yeah, Bran is king, but he's still crippled and weird, aloof, three-eyed raven. I mean, he's barely human, ruling the Six Kingdoms now. I guess if there's a happier ending in anything, it's the North getting to go full Notre Dame here and stay independent, and have a queen in the North and Sansa, but.
Our Lady.
Yes, exactly. Our Lady Sansa of the North. But yeah, there was definitely a lot of impact that wasn't there, and I'm going to get into that a little bit later. I'm going to try to save the ranting, but I mean, everything kind of the only issue I had with what actually happened was after all was said and done, Jon Snow went full circle and went right back to the fucking wall, or rather, it looked like he went back to the wildlings to go live with them. And it felt like that was a character that was devoid after a while of any growth. He was this prince that was promised, and I know the prince that was promised didn't necessarily need to be, smart or wise or anything like that, but nothing happened with him. It was just going right back to the start, and except the only difference was this time he knew the wall was a punishment and not some act of bravery like he romanticized the hell out of it at first.
I don't know. I mean, like, Jon Snow is an example of like this man was brought back to life, and from that point, that was when that was essentially when the show had jumped ahead of the books, and they had to kind of like reveal one of the biggest book reveals ahead of time, and then the shark was pretty much jumped after that because they made Jon Snow's arc seem to matter so much. I mean, not only was he brought back from the dead, and all the questions that go into why, like genuinely why, not like some abstract, hey, look, Beric, you died 7 times and this is the one. Like, we can point to that one.
Yeah, you only die when you've saved Arya enough times. Now you're dead.
I mean, we could point to that one as being like, okay, maybe the Lord of Light actually like clearly had a plan, because 7 revivals is kind of absurd. But Jon's revival felt like there was some bigger purpose than just human bullshit, which is kind of what it boiled down to. It was, I guess, this is where the expectation versus what we're shown started to kind of blur, because we saw this revival, and all of a sudden, the Azor Ahai prophecy had super legs. I mean, like, Usain Bolt legs. We were, like, essentially waiting to watch this shit hit the finish line. And yet, that was completely ignored. Just, no, he was brought back because he needed to be here, even though he didn't actually have to die. Like, narratively, his death was just something that they were told effectively to write in by George R. R. Martin, because after that, they did nothing with it. They just kept the story going as if he hadn't died. That's all they did. There's no purpose to it. And then there's that cascades down to a bunch of other characters. But Jon's, I think, is the biggest glaring example, because he was like the guy. As obvious as it seemed, he was the main character. And that ends up feeling empty now.
Yeah, and the other bit of emptiness I felt, and this will be the one college football reference I make, and that was the ending for Jaime and Cersei Lannister. Like, I mean, it was the SC hype machine, and then everything just crumbles down all around him. Because it was built to, and not necessarily that Jaime needed to be redeemed. I think the show made it clear that every time he had a redeemable path, he eventually reverted back to what he always was. So the fact that he went back to save Cersei and leave Brienne high and dry, totally in character, makes sense. He's a fucking moron for doing it, but it makes sense. That's what he's done all series long. The crazy part, though, was, going back and basically just, he almost gets killed in a side fight that really didn't need to happen in the first place.
Oh my god. First of all, Euron Greyjoy just had no place in the show. I know that he's part of the books, but his injection, like, they just kind of slid him in there to create this, like, this parallel C storyline, not even a B plot. Like, they just threw him in there to be like, hey man, this guy's unpredictable and scary. What? And it turns out that he was just like a fucking frat boy. He was just a frat boy that wanted to fuck a woman in power.
Pretty much.
That's all he did. And then somehow he sniped fucking Rhaegal. Like, I don't know. That his presence was we were at peace with the idea that his fleet was alight and just burned, and just we're done with him. We literally stopped thinking about him after that. And yet, Jamie happens to walk by that stupid beach for really, I'm not sure what reason, and who just shows up out of nowhere like, surprise, motherfuckers, it's Euron. And that fight was worthless because what happened? Nothing happened.
Yeah, he thought he killed the Kingslayer, and he didn't, because the red keep falling on top of his head killed him. And the only reason I think they brought him to that beach was because that's where he trained with Bronn when he was trying to learn how to fight with one hand. But even then, why? That is a callback that doesn't even make sense.
That relationship has disintegrated at this stage. Like, the investment in Jamie and Bronn's relationship is null, because Jamie is basically under Bronn's finger about whether or not I'm deciding to kill you. Like, the dynamic is no longer... If that was meant to be a callback, which I kind of feel like it may have or may have not been, I'm not sure. They maybe think themselves so clever because they did write and direct the last episode. They maybe think themselves so clever as to be like, I don't like this callback. But that wasn't at all anything I registered. I just look at this, and all I could say at the screen was, oh, come the fuck on. I said that shit out loud. Why are we looking at this man?
Well, the one actual out loud reaction I had was the throne room scene. And I think now, before we get, I'm gonna save the throne room rant, because I think that should have been a moment that lost all impact, and I got a lot for that. We did get one question before, and it kind of ties in. Let's talk about the story in a vacuum. This was from at Cbus Irish over on Twitter, and he was wondering, and he wanted to hear thoughts on if Bran was the big bad all along. And the thing he was holding on to is that at the very end where Tyrion said, I know you don't want to be king, but will you accept? And he's like, well, why do you think I came all this way? Got him thinking, well, maybe he's the big bad because he can see the future, because he can kind of maybe figure out where to put the pawns in place to get power, that he was really the one pulling the strings all along. What do you think about that theory, Shane?
I mean, that kind of sounds like reading between the lines. If we look at what the show is now, it's there. The only reason I'm saying this so quickly is because the show abandoned intrigue. They abandoned deception, misdirection. They completely left all the theorizing and prognostication and predicting on us into a vacuum, because they had no interest in any of it. So I can understand in the context of someone who can see, quote unquote, the future and the past, saying, why do you think I came all this way, being like, oh shit, he got what he wanted the whole time. But in just looking at Bran as a character, and really just the nature of the conversation that was taking place when he said that, like, it sounded more like he was saying it as a reassurance to the people in the area, like, hey guys, we're all where we need to be. This is good. Like, you picked who I knew you were going to pick, and this isn't something that I want, but I know this is how this is going to play out. But I don't see him using that as a malicious manipulation. I mean, like, you're going to tell me he orchestrated the murdering of thousands of Northmen, Dothraki, and Unsullied, and a couple of dragons, just to end up on the throne of nothing, because ultimately he doesn't really care? It doesn't really track.
Yeah, and I took that line to mean it's like, yeah, I wheeled my ass all the way up here because I knew this is how it was going to end, right, and I can't accept it if I'm not here. And I also agree with you that the show, I think, made it very clear that at the end, everything was what it was.
Yep.
And there was nothing else. Again, the throne room scene, I think, was the last point where they tried to really vomit symbolism all over the screen. Again, I'm trying to save. I have a lot of thoughts about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think everything else, it was what it was, and Bran was of all people, kind of a logical choice. I think outside of Sansa would have been the only other one I actually expected to end up there, but I knew even that was a stretch. I went into that episode knowing that Dany was getting killed. Jon likely wouldn't get the throne because he would get killed or do something stupid. He damn near did both. And beyond that, it was, okay, now who's left? Like, logically actually left that could sit on the throne. And
Tyrion was really the only potential wild card, but
I was expecting him to die too, and again, he almost did. Like, one of the biggest surprises was that he lived through the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, once the scene happens where he, defiantly tosses the hand pin down the stairs, what I thought was happening was that he was going to walk up to Dany and, like, make an attack. I don't know what he was going to do. Like, the slow walk up, I was like, oh fuck, they're gonna make him do the most anti-Tyrion thing that they've been making him do all this time, and he's gonna attack her in some fashion. And then of course he throws it down, and that was when I thought, okay, well they're gonna use this as like the final Game of Thrones fuck you guys. Like, hey, here's the one you guys liked. Guess what? He made it all the way to the end dead. But no, he didn't. But the throne scene, though.
Okay, all right. So let's go ahead. We've beaten around the bush. We're gonna break the wheel here, if you will. We're gonna get out of the vacuum. We're gonna let the show have it, and I'll start because I've already referenced it. The throne scene in general, and what I'm talking about here, just in case you're confused, is the scene where Jon kills Dany, and then Drogon, melts the throne. It was. I get what they were trying to do. That was very poetic. It should have had a lot of impact. It was, okay, the wheel is broken. We've been talking about it from, point A, and now we're here at point B. And that was, the thing that caused all the strife throughout the Seven Kingdoms. It's why everybody died. It was the focus on this pile of swords made into a chair. But when that moment happened, I just died laughing.
Yes, I sat there like, okay.
Like, really, this is what we're doing. Okay, the dragon is the one that has the most sense of everything, and instead of torching Jon to the ground, which he expected, everybody expected, he torches the throne, and then he goes back into outer space or wherever the fuck with Dany's body.
So, effectively, that moment was, to me, the moment where Game of Thrones as Game of Thrones ended, like as the show, like as what it meant or what it was, its content, its substance. That was the moment where it was over.
It was all epilogue after that.
They were done. Not even like the second Drogon looked at him and then burned right. I was like, well, they gave up. The show's over. It's done. Because it makes no fucking sense. I mean, you're gonna tell me that this dragon has the only precursory signal we have of any notion of like further intelligence in Drogon was him staring sexually at Dany and Jon kissing by the waterfall one fucking time. So now you're going to tell me that is context enough for this dragon to A, understand human politics, B, recognize symbols of power, and C,
that he's never seen.
And C, understand that, you know what, Jon, it's not your fault. You did it because of that piece of shit. First of all, not only did he burn the throne, the first blasts of fire he used to clear some room out of the wall.
So
he went around the chair.
It could be picturesque that it was melting.
And then he was like, bleh. And I'm not sure if he started vomiting lava or what the fuck that was all about, but like, what the fuck? How smart is Drogon really?
And this is also the problem when you as the showrunners decide to basically take all because there have been connections in the books, and I haven't read all of them. I've made it through about 2.5, but there's always connections in the books between the animals and people, especially the direwolves and the connection. So I haven't gotten to the part where they're dragons yet, but I would be shocked if similar connections aren't mentioned there. There's always this supernatural connection, and the show the only thing they did in regards to the dragons and the direwolves both, the direwolves love their Starks, and the dragons love Targaryens. So when Jon was able to ride a dragon, or dragon didn't eat him, it was kind of hey, this he probably is a Targaryen, hint hint. And also how it spun off, maybe Tyrion's part Targaryen because the dragon didn't eat him and let him pet him. But that's as far as the show went. So when you decide to eschew that and really kind of minimize all of it, especially when you have Jon not petting Ghost, and then you edit in reshot previously shot footage. Man.
Like, you shameless fucks. We see what you're doing. You didn't have that shit shot. You did not. Like, did it or did it not feel like, and not to tangent this, but did it not feel oddly like that final episode specifically was addressing the bitching?
Yeah, it really did. Because it looked like recycled footage. It looked like recycled footage where he was petting Ghost at the wall before.
Even more believable because there were no spoken lines in that entire scene.
Exactly.
So, like, they made sure no context was out of order. They just had Tormund give a look and
We're-
him give a look.
We're going to leave Starbucks cups and water bottles in plain fucking view of the episodes, but we will take the time to re-edit.
Yeah, to answer
A
your
good
griping
point,
and
good
maybe
point.
fend off PETA. I don't fucking know. It's so dumb.
It was extremely off. It was odd. But anyway, I mean that scene should have been the culmination, and really, it was the bigger. God, what is the word I'm looking for? It's a prime example of the problem I had with the entire season. Everything was so undeserved. Everything was foreshadowed, and they felt like that was enough work done. It's like, okay, we did our homework. We know. We already told you where we're going. You can put the pieces back together. But it just all felt, I saw unearned thrown around a lot in writing. But for me, it was not even that it was unearned. It was just that it felt just that it was rushing to a point and getting done. It was like the opposite of what I've seen in anime when they run out of source material.
Oh my God.
Where it's like, okay, we're going to do filler until we get a source, so we're just going to make up bullshit in between here until the source catches up. Yeah. They did the exact opposite. It's like, oh, well, here's the rough outline. Oh, we're just going to follow it. HBO, I know you said we could have more seasons. We're just going to do one and make some really long episodes and trim down what probably should have been 2 seasons into 1.
Yeah, and that's still... I don't know if it's been done yet, but that's going to be like the biggest question that they will have to answer for at this point, because HBO came to the table and said, how many episodes do you need? Yep. And they were like, 13.
Yep.
And they offered them 10 and 10.
And they would have done it. I mean, HBO knew what they had. Viewers were not getting sick of it. It almost felt like...
they were.
And this is really, we got robbed of so many things because of that decision.
Yes.
And the biggest one for me is Varys, the biggest manipulator, the master, he's the master of whispers. He knows how to play every single side, yet when it comes to the most important game he needs to play, he gets killed in 20 minutes.
Yeah, he starts playing and dies immediately.
Yes, and that makes no sense at all. It was a clear rush. He gets 20 minutes to try to subvert Dany. You give him a few more episodes of that, you're going to believe Dany lost her mind because she won't eat because Varys is trying to poison her, which, by the way, I didn't catch until I saw it mentioned. You're like, oh yeah, that's right. That's why he was talking to the girl. He's poisoning her food.
That I actually realized just because the girl said she's not eating. I was like, damn, this dude's just fucking slick.
Yeah.
Like, real quick.
I mean, it didn't even register with me until, thinking back on it, but episodes upon episodes of that, and Tyrion struggling with the decision to turn his best friend, outside of his Jaime in.
Yeah. I mean, Varys got done dirty, in my opinion.
Big time.
It was just like, I mad respect the fact that he was the only person basically burned alive by Drogon that didn't even fucking flinch. He just went down. Like, just no screaming, no nothing. But, like, the fact that somebody as adept and versed in this art within the human world could essentially be taken down by something so dumb as Tyrion just snitched. like,
which was out of character for him, too.
It was out of character until the show very slyly moved in the line between the conversation between Jon and Tyrion at the end about how I loved her too. It's like, oh, now they're calling that back up. When was the last time we checked? End of season 6? Okay, cool. So now we're just being reminded that Tyrion loved her, which is why he was doing all this. No, I'm sorry. Not so. None of it made sense. It was just these... Tyrion, I think, in terms of bastardizations of a character's true nature and like what they were good about, like what was good about them, Tyrion was the worst case to me. They completely, it's like the character was too smart for the directors.
Yeah.
And they couldn't figure out how to match it.
Exactly. And look, Tyrion's folly was always believing too much in his family. Like all that of him trying to give Cersei one more chance, releasing Jaime, all that is actually in character for him because all he wanted at the end of the day was the approval of his family. The sole reason he killed his father was because he just snapped. And mostly because his father decided to bang Shay as well. So he decided to strangle Shay, kill his dad. I mean, he had that moment where he completely lost it.
Yeah.
Every other time, he had many chances to... when he was originally Hand, if he wanted to, he could have tanked the entire thing if he really wanted to. But no, he wanted to be valuable to his family. He wanted approval in the eyes of his father, in the eyes of his sister. He had it in the eyes of his brother. He always did. He was always trying to earn that. Despite how bad he was treated, he always wanted to earn that additional respect. As dumb as it was, that was the one true part that they held on to. Like you said, where they bastardized him was when he was with Danny, he fucked everything up in almost every single turn. Nothing makes sense.
0 for 8 on decisions.
Even let's put everybody in the crypt. And God Almighty, was that? Hey, the crypt's safe. The crypt's safe. The crypt's safe. Like, oh Jesus Christ, you don't need to lay it on that thick. The dead bodies are coming out. We get it.
6 times in the first 2 episodes. Like, are you going to signal this any harder? By the way, inside the episode after the Battle of Winterfell, Peter Dinklage himself was like, they said go inside the crypt. I guess Tyrion's not that fucking smart. It's like, ha, he noticed.
Yes, he noticed. That there's a lot of interviews with the cast, like before the season ever aired, where it looks like they're in hostage negotiations.
No, dude, there's a big mass cut on YouTube of every interview of people being of actors being asked about the final season, and all of them were like, ha.
Like, I forgot who it was. One of them actually answered disappointing. It's like, give us one word, disappointing.
Kit Harington said it. Jon Snow.
Oh man, and he is not wrong. It was, it was disappointing to see a show, and especially because the way the season started, it was this slow burn. And episode 2 was one of the best episodes in the series because it was really trying to tie up all the loose ends for the characters, showing how they got there, and kind of finalizing a lot of arcs. And it was great. It was extremely character driven. It's what made that show awesome. And then
scene.
And then the fireplace scene was incredible. And the knighting of Brienne was absolutely incredible, which was like, okay, this makes sense for Jaime. This is like the one redeemable thing this guy's going to do with his life is knight the first woman in Westeros. And you had everybody getting Tormund's story about Giant Spain.
Dude, Tormund, like, legend. Like, that guy goes down as like perhaps one of the best things they just added onto the show. I mean, that dude is
great.
Is the shit.
Yeah, it was awesome. But everything built to that moment. It was like, and it was. We expected it in typical Game of Thrones fashion. We build you up, we make you fall in love with these characters, and we're going to make you fall so hard, and then we're going to kill half of them. Mm-hmm. And that just really didn't happen in The Long Night. And, I mean, if you look at it, like, a lot of people did die, and the episode itself was great. I enjoyed the episode. I had a lot of fun. I had to rewatch it after adjusting my TV because the thing was too damn dark. But the episode was great. The only thing that felt weird, and I'm interested to hear this, is Arya killing the Night King. Not necessarily that she wasn't trained her whole life to do it, because in the after episode where they're talking about, well, we just knew it had to be Arya to kill the Night King, and then I'm like, hold on, was that not in the outline you got? Like, did you make a decision that Arya was going to kill the Night King because the bullet point says Night King loses?
Yeah,
because that made me had an eyebrow raised, like, oh, is this going to get retconned? And that kind of leans into, like, the further speculation here of who's to blame for this mess. Was there just not enough source material and they were scared? Or did they just think that they were geniuses and running along here? Because who do we put blame on for how this ended?
I mean, you have to, considering the nature of the dissemination from George R.R. Martin, all I know for a fact is that when they initially set up the contract, he had to tell them just the end in some loose fashion in case he died. So he had to tell them, look, this is the final resolution. You guys can get there your way, but we've got about 5 seasons worth of shit that you use as a straight up guide. And then from there, you can thread some of those, things together. It seems to me that GRM was content to be like, you know what? Yeah, that sounds fucking interesting. Go for it. But I would say, in terms of Arya being the one to kill the Night King, it was incredibly rewarding. Like, it just felt so badass. But just 1 minute later, if you step back and examine it, you have to ask, like, but why? But why? I mean, but really why? Like, there were no whites no White Walkers that actually pulled a weapon or did any kind of combat. The Night King didn't get to really use his weapon. He used Theon's weapon against him.
Yeah.
You know? So I mean, it just kind of felt like, and this is one of my best friends said that to him, he was deeply invested in the winter is coming, Night King as the bad storyline, just because, you know, he liked the shift from just abstract ideas to, hey, there's a fucking bad guy, he's coming, he's gonna fuck shit up. Like, he liked the idea, and when he saw that scene, I watched his expression. He genuinely was deflated. He was like, that's it? That's all we get? We get a smirk from the guy, and then he's glass? Like, and to me, that was probably a lot of the confusion. Is that all we get? But to me, it was more, why Arya? And to me, it's like, do you really want it to be Jon Snow? Like, did we really want that to happen? Like, was that what we were expecting? Because
No, I was happy it was Arya and the way they did it, because and the entire episode, Jon was a freaking idiot up to planning the battle to running after Daenerys on the dragons. I mean, completely tossing the plan out the window.
Yeah,
and got so many more people killed. So yeah, he did not earn that kill.
Right. But it was a cool resolution, but it still begged the question of like, what. Like, there are no ramifications really now. Like, Arya killed the Night King. Arya bounced from Winterfell. No one gets to really address the fact that she killed the Night King. Like, genuinely. Like, it isn't a thing. And yet it was the bane of everyone's existence for years. Like, the generations of people were anticipating this guy's arrival. Arya kills him, and then everyone's just done. It's over. Like, okay. And that, to me, is like where it really started to feel like they were just going to pull most of these rugs out from underneath us before we were ready to stand on them. Because they wanted the cool answer, like that cool, like, oh shit moment. But if on its surface, it looked like something, but underneath it, it's empty.
Yeah, and then how quickly they transition to, okay, now we got to go take King's Landing immediately. Nobody gets to rest. Yeah, and the weirdest part was after that moment, Arya is like, she should be the biggest badass in the entire realm now. She literally killed an undead king, and then when it comes time to get the name that she had on her list, the name, the one that drove her to become the stone cold assassin anyway, was Cersei. And especially after, let's rewind even before the Night King, she murders all the Freys.
Yeah.
She bakes people in a pie. Like, it was lined up to where she is a stone cold killer and she doesn't care what happens to her. She's going to get Cersei. That's where everything was leading up to. She got the end didn't feel like it should have been the Night King. So you had this great moment for her, and then you had the Hound telling her, no, you just don't want to die. Get out of here. And then she becomes a scared little girl throughout the rest of it. And look, the war is held through her point of view. Was well done. It was good. It just felt really weird that she almost fell off a cliff with her character in that moment.
She absolutely did. Because after that, her full contribution to the show
was over.
Just looking at stuff. Like, she just looked at things. She looked at the entire city and fled and tried to help people and watched them burn and looked at a fucking horse that vanished the next episode because she was just walking through the city. Then she looked at Daenerys. Then she looked at Jon, and then she fucking left. Like, that's, I mean, she didn't have anything else to be. And I feel like they did she's going to sail west and discover what's west, because they had no idea what to do with her.
And that was really weird for the character arc that she had. I mean, the poetic thing that I was really hoping for, and I got into some discussions like, okay, well, who kills Cersei? I said, well, and I was going off the prophecy that was in the book, not mentioned in the show, that when her younger brother was going to kill her. Everybody expected to be Tyrion. I was like, well, what about the actual Kingslayer staying to be a Kingslayer? That he finally realizes Cersei's unredeemable, decides to kill her or kill himself, because there's no way he's living with that decision.
Right.
And
that would have been best.
And somebody said, it was like, well, how about this? Arya in Jaime's face. I was like, whoa.
Well, Arya would have to kill Jaime first, though. Would that not be the case?
Yeah, most like if I remember right how it worked, yes. But that also would have been like one hell of a reveal. Like, Arya reveals, that she had Jaime's face on after she stabbed Cersei, and the camera pans to this dead Lannister body, out in the middle, like inside like the slums of King's Landing.
Yeah,
that would have felt a little bit more rewarding. Instead, they gave. it was almost like they romanticized Jamie and Cersei and their entire relationship, which is very weird and very creepy. That they wanted to give the incestual relationship the Jamie Lannister wants to die in the arms of the woman he loves. Like, he's gonna get his romantic end. Even to the point of Brienne, which, man, she should have wrote some shit in that book instead of being as nice as she was.
Straight up fuck boy. Dick game, weak sauce. Look, for Jamie's character, like, I think I have to like step away because I love Nikolai Coster-Waldau.
Oh, the actor is fantastic.
Incredible actor. But what they did with him was kind of like this weird, like, up and down trajectory where it's like, I got righteousness, I'm so close. Shit, Cersei, fuck, I'm done.
Repeatedly.
Okay, wait, she's being an asshole. I'm getting there, man. I'm gonna go to Winterfell. Ah, fuck, my dick is drained and I gotta go back and love her. It's just, there was a love, something, there's so many things you can love about that guy, and what they did with the character, I feel like, are all the things that you are supposed to hate. And I feel like maybe that's why I feel like they ruined it for us, because it's just the decisions that they wrote him into at the end that really kind of undermined everything he'd been through up until that point. But at the same time, like you said at the beginning, like, it is kind of true to his character that no matter what, that weird twin shit they had going on, not just the fucking, but like just that deep love for each other despite everyone, like, you can tell that was still his true nature. But what I don't understand is, like, the show being like, hey, they found each other on the map, and hey, they're running downstairs together, and look at that, it's too late, everything's coming down below them, but they're so beautiful, and they're so in love, and look how much they love each other, don't they just deserve this together? And it's like, yes, for malicious reasons, but also, no, because ew? And then on top of that, like, it's just, to see them get crushed is one thing where I was like, this is total cop-out bullshit. But then, even worse in my opinion, was Tyrion holding back rocks, God, and fucking Tresemme fucking faces of magazine covers, like, beautiful death. I was like, are you kidding? I would have loved to have seen some, like, mangled ass shit and, like, a broken, bent golden hand detached from his body because it was way down there, not conveniently at the top of the pile.
Where it looks like they're just they're in mid spoon underneath all the rubble.
That's not to undermine, like, Tyrion's Peter Dinklage's acting in that particular scene when he finally just fucking balls out, like, lets it all go and sees them dead. To me, it was like, there goes his Emmy. It's done. It's over. Like, he's got it. But I just, like, there was nothing satisfying about that because we loved Jamie. We hated Cersei. And yet, in spite of that, there was the dichotomy in our brains about, like, why do they love each other? Blah, blah, blah. But still, no one's expecting it to just be this, like, it's almost fairy tale-esque. They just get to, oh, it's just rubble, and you don't get to see the damage, and nothing's wrong.
Yeah, and that was very un-Game of Thrones like that entire death sequence. It didn't make any sense at all. The way they had that set up. Again, they just an episode prior, they showed that he was an unredeemable bastard, and it was like, it's like, oh, here's a redemptive kind of moment, and Cersei realizes that, everything's falling around her, and now she's in tears, and I'm just like, I don't care at this point. Yeah. And I was honestly hoping, it was like, are we sure they're dead? Can they not be? Can Cersei, like, just crawl out of the rubble and still get her justice?
You weren't the only one. Like, the next day, all I saw were Yahoo articles like, this confirms that they may still be alive. And it's like, you know what? We shouldn't be able to say that. We should have gotten something more definitive and more like, holy shit, Cersei got hers. Because I think that was probably the worst part, is that Cersei just got away and just died in her lover fucking brother's arms. Like, she was, to me, the pinnacle of, like, true evil shit in this show. Like, just the machinations of that woman were ruthless. She gave no fucks. She did whatever she wanted, and she killed whom the fuck ever she wanted. And she just gets to die in her brother's arms. And it's like, whereas the Night King said fucking nothing, just did zombie shit, and, Arya, buddy, look at that. I would have had that flipped almost, like, have him die in Bran's arms under a falling weirwood tree or some shit, and then Jaime Lannister comes up and fucking, it's Arya, kills Cersei. I just didn't, it just felt it felt like a very big like go fuck yourselves. You know, she's a good actress, but y'all don't deserve to see anything fun.
Yeah, and I mean, and in that episode, seeing the Cleganis fight was great. Even though the
Like,
fight itself was good, but the end, I'm like, yeah, okay, I guess that's how it had to end with them
right?
both jumping into fire. Again, they were. It's like a middle schooler writing something. It's like, oh, I learned what a metaphor was. I learned how to do imagery, and they just beat people over the head with it, like the white horse that Arya saw.
Oh,
It's like all these articles. What could it mean? Pale white horse means
Pale white
death.
horse,
It always
death.
fucking means death.
Yeah. Well, they were like, oh, but it was blonde. Could it be Daenerys? Oh, it's like, no, you weirdos. No, the Clegane Bowl. Okay, look, I liked it, but also I hated it in that, like, I don't know, man. I guess for something that I was like really looking forward to being maybe like the saving grace of like this whole kind of like build up of like that's the villain, now that's the villain, just kidding, that's the villain. Like, I liked the idea of having this one consistent fucking revenge match. Fucking, they're going at it, they don't give a shit, someone's dying, even though one's already dead. But the way it played out was just like, all right, cut, that didn't work. Cut, that didn't work. Mountain owns the hound. Mountain owns the hound. Mountain owns the hound again. Mountain owns the hound. Did you see that Mountain owned the hound? Because he owned the hound again. And then at the end, it was just like, well, we've written him into a barrier he can't break through. Oh, but look at that. Just over the corner, there's a pit of fire. Wouldn't it be nice and poetic if we just ended this like this? And it's just like, it felt like just another quick period at the end of the sentence. No more paragraphs about fun fight. No, the hound loses an eye, but then he cuts off the mountain's arm, and like nothing of substance. It was just, here's the metaphor of his vengeance story, and then it's over. They're dead.
Yeah, there was a lot of substance that wasn't there, either from the missing storylines and even in the epilogue part, like the Unsullied are running King's Landing. This seems like a major storyline here. There's a fucking militia that is controlling everything right now, and they're pissed.
Unchecked. Now, mind you, okay, then let's one step behind that. Jon kills Daenerys.
Mm-hmm.
Then what?
There's no body. He confessed.
There's nobody. She's gone, as is Drogon. Jon has to walk his ass down to a fucking vicious military, half Dothraki, half Unsullied, and be like, okay, guys, this is going to be hilarious. Your guest speaker's not here today. I'm here on her behalf. And then they didn't kill him. That's the thing. They didn't kill him. You know he confessed to doing it because it's Jon fucking Snow.
Yes.
And yet they took him prisoner just 5 minutes prior. Tyrion's like, we don't keep prisoners very long. This motherfucker was in there for weeks.
Yes, exactly.
How does
For
this make any
weeks.
sense?
And he was expecting to be burned the next day. So
Yeah.
that was all weird, and especially when Grey Worm is sitting here, it's like, we're killing all of the Queen's enemies. It's her orders. Like, he still would have been following her orders, and he gave zero fucks. The only thing he loved in the world was gone. Taken from him in the previous episode. He was there. He was happy when Daenerys went mad. He's like, oh yeah, now this shit's fucking
finally
on now. It's like, everybody is going to feel my wrath. And God, it's just going through all that.
Same guy.
Yeah, it's like, oh, let's just sail away. Yeah, putting Jon on the wall is fine.
That same guy. Okay, first of all, he got super duped by Tyrion because Tyrion knew there was no fucking Night's Watch. He's just like, yo, bro, just tell him we're going to the wall. It's bullshit. Just keep going. But that same guy that like was ready to just follow the Queen's fucking ruthless, murderous rampage, then brings one of his two prisoners to this king's moot out of nowhere, and just is like, okay, pick your king. Let me know when you're ready. Like, I understand that he doesn't really care about the politics, but the whole reason he was there was because he recognized the value of the two hostages that he had in his possession.
Exactly.
And when it came time to be like, we should all like just pick a king and like it'd be fine, he was like, hey, prisoner, go ahead, pick it. Like, you pick it, and then guess what? Whoever you pick can then pardon you, and I'm just fucked. They're like, what? Like, he just didn't care anymore? Was it that he wasn't interested in being in King's Landing anymore? That maybe tracks, because they don't really give a fuck about being in Westeros. But like, dude, you're not gonna kill these people, and then on top of that, you're just gonna be like, who wants to be king? Who's that? You said him? Okay, we're out. I hate that.
It made no sense at all, because both of them should have been dead just in a murderous rage, and then you're trying to pick up the pieces afterwards. It's like, okay, now we got a whole army here. We're all tired. We're all exhausted. We fought this war. Now what do we do? And you said that, I mean, half Dothraki are in there. Didn't they? I thought they all died.
Apparently they got respawns, like, galore. Because they sent off all of them. At the end of the Battle of Winterfell, I will say, they showed, like, 10 stragglers. You know, the guys that came back with Jorah at the beginning that were like, fuck this. Like, we got nothing. They showed those, but then, like, what happened?
They multiplied.
Are they gremlins? They just fucking fed them after midnight? Like, bloop, 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 bloop. Like, what happened?
Because I'm like, it's like, the show didn't have its edge. So Freddy killed people. Like, they killed an entire people. They killed an entire race. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, I guess they pulled that punch too, because here they are again. I had to throw that in there because that was just super weird.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many things that they just abandoned on the cutting room floor. Like, the entirety of Essos just doesn't exist anymore. Mm-hmm. Dario Naharis is either just burning shit to the ground or running the fuck out of Marine. We have no idea, and we never will. It doesn't exist anymore. It's gone.
And the entire Golden Company is gone. What's the fallout from that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. Who do they answer to? The Iron Bank of Bravos? Oh, debt? Bitch, we don't care. That's not a thing. We don't want that.
Yeah, and as far as like the blame, because that's how we started this, it's on both. I think here. I think the showrunners were afraid to really take risks and take chances, and George R. R. Martin really didn't have everything. He didn't give them the sort. It was a very rough outline. There were a lot of holes, and it was, the entire show was written like, you know what, we got a little bit of latitude to do some things. But man, George can sit here and finish the books and make us look like complete fucking idiots. We're like beta testing a story from him. Fuck it, let's make these episodes, take our money, and run. Because it seriously felt like senioritis. We're graduating. Fuck you, we're out of here.
It was pure senioritis.
Yes.
I wonder if it's that they were like, we are clearly not gonna do this shit justice. We should just get out while the getting's good, as in our contract is still fucking intact. Or was it just that, like, it's a combination of what you said, right? They perhaps fumbled the baton a bit when it was handed to them, right? And then on top of that, the baton wasn't really handed off very well. It was kind of haphazard. There you go, take that.
Yeah, the baton's a string, man. The whole baton isn't intact right now.
I think that is likely, if George R. R. Martin has to bear any responsibility for what happened to this depiction of his media, it's that he didn't really want to, or feel the need to, or just have the substance to give them a progression of events, not through like a direct, hey, this is exactly it, and if you leak this shit, my books are fucked, because he can't do that. But like, just in the leaps that he needed them to get to, there had to have been beats in between where I feel like he could have at least been like, guys, I mean, that's stupid.
Yeah, and I don't think he cared, and I don't think the books are going to be done. And I think that's where the showrunners completely screwed up there, was you got to see, it's like, dude, he ain't getting any younger. You know what? Fuck it. We're huge fans of this series. That's why we're doing this in the first place. We got the rough outline. Let's make this shit count, okay? If we're going to go down, we're going to go down in a big-ass ball of flames. Let's do 2 seasons of this. Let's lead up to the long night, and then let's have the rest of the final season be the siege on King's Landing and Dany going mad. Instead, it's like, you know what? Fuck it. And let's leave and again, Starbucks cups being in there saying, well, it's hard to CGI petting a dire wolf. Like, all these random ass excuses, just it reeked of laziness. And
none of their excuses held up.
And George he's doing spinoffs. He's talking to HBO about doing spinoffs. He's talking about doing a fucking video game, different movies. He is not concerned with finishing the book, and I think now I know why. He knows where this all ends. And because it's the book, he's got 5 times as many threads hanging around than what the show had. So what he wants to do, and I even said as soon as it was over, it's like, I know where the books aren't done. Good luck, buddy, finishing them. Because to get to that point and to do it well, it ain't going to be easy, because he's got a big-ass narrative to weave. He's got more characters to worry about. There's another fake Targaryen running around in the books. There's Lady Stoneheart running around in the books.
Yep.
He's got all kinds of shit to worry about. And I can completely see why he hadn't finished the last two, because
Well,
I'm
think
sure.
about it now. Like, the cat's out of the bag. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the finale of Harry Potter has been released before the final two Harry Potters came out. It's like, I mean, it's the same dynamic. The fans are devout, but the people who consume the media are just going to consume it as is, because that's the way they take it. So now, if those people who finish the show, I guarantee you there's going to be like a huge add-on to book readers, right, of this series. Now that they're going to be going through withdrawals about, the show, and in an effort to anticipate the true form and be part of it or whatever, right? I'm sure that's going to happen. We have to remember his ending is out. It's there. Like, everyone knows what that's going to be. Now, how it's going to look is different, but like, that creates like a fuck. Like, I have to get there, and it has to be like really fucking good, because now they all have that was the C version. We want the A version. Like, and that, I feel like that's going to fuck with him, because he's never had to write to that expectation. He's just fucking written his stories as he dictates.
Right.
But now that he's got a visual of what these things may look like, I guarantee you it's going to fuck up with his imagination process, because he's going to have these preconceived biases that he didn't want or didn't maybe envision himself.
Yeah, and probably negative reactions as well was not in the cards of expecting, and now people looking. I mean, here's where I stand. I'm not going to read the books until he finishes them, because I know how it ends now. And when I started reading the books, and I was like, well, the show's now past the books. I'm just going to watch the show. There's no reason for me to catch up, and then it's like, I know where this thing's going to end. Now it's okay. I know how it ends. I'd love to see how the books finish this out, because the books are much more dense. There's a lot more richness to them. I enjoy reading it, but it's kind of a slog to read some of those books. It's not an easy read. As fun as it is not an easy read. This guy will spend pages talking about fucking food.
Yep.
So, and now so that's an expectation that he just, as old as he is, as much money as he now has, as many other projects as he's probably got a lot more interest in, there's something new to work on that doesn't have the same expectation of me finishing A Song of Ice and Fire.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're ever going to get finished.
I feel like it's not likely. I mean, first of all, he apparently just benchmarked himself, and he said that he's going to finish it by 2020, this next book, when he has his trip back to fucking New Zealand or some shit for a major event. He feels
right.
Yeah, he did it to himself. So there's this, a story gets written every time this guy, farts in an alleyway or something. So, but I mean, I never really planned to read them until I knew it was gonna have a true complete ending. And like, honestly, like, the second I saw what George R.R. Martin looked like for the first time, I was like, that dude's gonna fucking die. I'm sorry. That dude is gonna fucking
He is
die.
not a picture of health. And I know I'm not either, but damn.
I'm just saying, like, it could be like right now. You know what I mean? Like, it's happening. Because he's an elderly person who's overweight, and it's just like, it's not, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a nutritionist, but like, I know that that's not healthy lifestyle. Like, and after a certain while, if you think about how long has it been since the last book came out? Like, it's already been like 3 or 4 years.
It's been, I think, even longer than that. I think we're closer to 6 or 8.
2020, and then there's another one. Like, bro, I mean, really, I'm with you. I'll wait and see if it ends and I get a chance to hit it start to finish. I'm going to, but until the end is there, why am I going to put myself through another version of this?
let me just sit there and work up more disappointment again.
Yeah, no. Let me write another 15,000 words about how crows don't fly that fast. Blah 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 blah.
All right. Well, final thoughts, Shane. Anything you still have left in the tank that needs to get fired out with this show?
And I don't want I know this has been mostly just like, this show. But like, I have to recognize that when I discovered this show in about 2012, so after the first season had already aired, I found it on Amazon TV at the time. And when I found it was only 2 seasons long. And I started at maybe like 6 p.m. that afternoon and didn't stop watching it until 10 a.m. the next fucking day. Like, I just wrote it out. Sunrise and everything. I was hooked. The show had me. I've rewatched the first 6 seasons maybe like 3 different times now, because I really, really enjoy the progression of a lot of those arcs and how compelling the storytelling is. But these last 2 seasons, unfortunately, are going to tarnish the memory that we have of the show, just because we are a species of what have you done for me lately? And ultimately, the most recent things that happen to us are the ones we remember the freshest and the most actively and the most vividly. So it's going to be some time, I think, before we really feel like, hey man, let's revisit that shit because that shit was really good. It got weird at the end, but like, let's really give it its due. For now, we're all going to be like real salty, but don't worry, because 10 years from now, they'll come out with like an animated reboot, and you know, we'll all be like, I don't like cartoons, but I super love this show. It's fucking great. But I tweeted at the time, and I still kind of believe it. Like when the show ended, I just felt like nothing. Not nothing in like a, oh, I'm so empty, and nothing in like a, this did nothing for me. Just I felt literally evened out. As much, all my love was negated by all the shit, and I just stabilized into an objective viewer. And I just walked away with like, that was entertainment that I consumed. The end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the way I said, it is not the best show I've watched. And there's a lot of other shows. I mean, shit that ended recently. Justified, The Americans, Breaking Bad, all had, was consistently solid. And I think ended, especially Justified and The Americans, about as well as you could possibly ask for them to end. And Breaking Bad the same way. And sometimes shows just lose steam. It happens. As much as I loved Lost and didn't hate the finale, I know that is very controversial, but Lost kind of did a similar thing. The revelation that the island was just a MacGuffin to keep you, and the mythology was just to progress the story and to keep you hooked and enthralled, left a sour taste in people's mouths, and Game of Thrones kind of did it here too, but the problem is, all the mythology was tied into it. It was a song of ice and fire because you had the Lord of Light and you had the undead and the Night King. It was so intertwined with the story, and you had dragons, you had everything that was a part of a fantasy world. And then to kind of say, you know what, we didn't really care about that. We were really interested in the politics and everything else behind it, which they did a good job of it. Just left a lot of people disappointed. You could tell that they didn't care, or at least to me, it looked like they didn't care about the Night King in that entire arc.
They didn't respect any of the magic. They didn't respect any of it.
No, and the dragons to get offed as easily as they did. Even when you had the one undead dragon, that was a weird ass death.
Didn't it feel like they were just cutting their budget with the like in the show? Like, here we go, we're cutting this budget.
I honestly think now looking back on it, they were really afraid. How do we do the Siege of King's Landing when Daenerys has got 3 fucking dragons? Like, it's an obvious wipeout. And then it's weird to say, okay, they wanted to even the odds to create that tension. Yet as soon as the siege started and one dragon was wrecking shit, you already knew it was over. You're like, okay, well, apparently they either forgot how to aim or Daenerys learned how to do some evasive fucking maneuvers on her dragon, which it made sense. It's this giant ballista crossbows. Yeah, these are not nimble.
They're not agile.
Yeah, these are not nimble devices. Like the fact it got one of them was weird. Yeah. And the fact that there was a whole city, that was the expected result there.
Everyone's scrambling to, oh fuck. Yeah,
so it was weird to have that tension. I think you would have had enough there because the tension was actually, is Daenerys going to kill everybody? Is she going to become the Queen of Ashes?
About her power.
and so that seemed like a miscalculation, and that's really what it was. It was a lot of miscalculations, and I think they knew it too because they said before the season started, where are you going to be for the finale? With the bottle of wine and far away from the internet. They knew they done fucked up. And really fucked up is it's overdone because still it is solid TV. It is not they had a bar set very, very high and they didn't come close to hitting it, but it's still better than a lot of the shows that you see on TV, even as rushed and horribly paced as it was. So I think we all wanted something better. Maybe as time passes a little bit, you start to see, and I think the older seasons will be romanticized more. I have a feeling it's going to turn into the Godfather type thing.
Right.
Where 1 and 2 were badass. 3 has a jiffable moment where he's talking about they bring me back in. So they were searching so hard for moments. Man, this turned into wrestling for me, big time. They were WWEing the shit out of this. They wanted their big moment. They wanted the big pop. And they focused so much of that, they lost the fucking plot. And eventually, I can't watch WWE right now because it is, I feel like they have keep losing the plot continuously. And honestly, had this show kept spinning its wheels, I probably would have finished it because of the investment I had into it. But man, Tell you what, it would not have been appointment watching TV like it was this past season.
No. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, Shane, I think with that, I think it's time to go. We've ranted close to an hour on a non-football podcast on a college football feed.
Yeah, for a show that literally start to finish is about 72 hours long. I mean, we can give it about an hour. That's fine.
Yeah. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed this. And hey, maybe we'll do a couple other off-season things here or there. Football's around the corner. Don't you worry. We will be back. But until then, folks, want to thank you for joining, and make sure you subscribe over at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, or wherever you happen to point your favorite podcasting device at. Be sure to follow us and subscribe over at twitch.tv/HerLittleSons. Join us live and join us in the chat. Join us in Discord. That's our live chat channel, herlittlesons.com/Discord. Of course, you can always find us at our home at herlittlesons.com. Special music in this episode is brought to you by Husky by the Geek for Game of Thrones Goes Rock. You can find more music at facebook.com/HuskyByTheGeek. And folks, until next time, Shane, I believe our watch has ended. Have a good one, everybody.